Hi, and welcome to MFG204, Smart Products and Services for New Revenue Streams. My name is Michel Putnick. I'm the global leader for Smart Products and Services at AWS. Today, I am joined by Gabriele, who is the CIO at UNOX. He's going to come up on stage in a little bit and share their really exciting story of how they instrumented their product range, and maybe more importantly, how that applies to the customer intimacy that they have gathered through this connectivity, the ability to serve customers in a differentiated way, the way to tie understanding of product performance into aspects of your supply chain, and a lot of other opportunities. They're at the beginning of their journey, I would still say. So there's a lot of stuff to uncover, a lot of areas to continue to go into. But before I get Gabriele on stage, I'd like to cover some areas when it comes to the smart products space. When we think about data capture coming from products themselves, it's one facet of data that we bring into our data lakes for further processing, for further analysis, to use in new and differentiated ways, whether it is, like I said, to drive customer relationships, loyalty, understanding the product's performance, understanding maybe how it's not performing, understanding how the end user is actually interacting with the product. Are they interacting as designed, in the R&D department, or are they using it in a different way? Are they using features that we spend a lot of time on creating, or are they missing those, and why? A lot of answers can be discerned by bringing this data from your product telemetry into your data lake. But it's one facet of a manufacturing data lake, if you will. You can answer a lot of questions from product telemetry, but there are other questions that you may want to ask in the same context or in similar contexts. One is engineering and design. Like I said, are the end users interacting with the product in a way that we designed it, or are they using it in different ways? How should I change the software? How should I change the menus by understanding how people are interacting with it? That goes back to the R&D department. If things are failing in the product from a hardware perspective, certain parts or materials, they will come to the R&D department's knowledge quite rapidly. So what do we need to change from a BOM perspective to serve the longevity of the product in the field? So that's another aspect. A third one would be the factory floor. Are we getting signals from the product telemetry that some things may not be functioning as expected? Was that a design flaw? Was it the environment in which it's operating that is causing this condition? Or did we have a quality issue the day of manufacture? So all of these things are kind of tied together. So as you embark on these types of journeys, think about the product telemetry inbound. Think about who benefits from it beyond your customer, of course. But also think about it in the context of what other questions or what other data sets would be beneficial to bring into the same data lake so I can make some smart root cause analysis. There's a mention here of supply chain in a number of spots here. And I think there's so many interesting things we can do to drive efficiencies across our supply chains by using the product telemetry. I think most companies that I talk to around the world they're just happy getting the stuff connected, whether it's an excavator or an oven or a car or whatever it is. The thought maybe was there from the beginning as they kind of defined their use cases, but for the most part, they're happy to get a product out that can connect, that we can get telemetry from, understand things from it. But things like, immediate benefits that impact supply chain is like, what should my inventory levels of spare parts be? In any part of the world that I happen to be serving. Can I optimize the sourcing of those parts? Of course you can, because you now have very high fidelity product telemetry data that tells me how many spare parts I need to have. And if I know that, I can optimize my inventory levels, of course, but I can also optimize my sourcing position. So there's a lot of interesting things that we can do with supply chain as it ties into product telemetry. This is not a supply chain session, of course, and I'm not mentioning this just because we made an announcement the other day for AWS supply chain. This slide has been there for quite a while. Some of the challenges that Gabriele and team at UNOX have, I'm sure, had to consider and think about long and hard some of these questions. By no means is this an exhaustive list of things to ask yourself or consider. Pricing, certainly in the industrial space, and that may vary in the consumer world. In the industrial space, certainly, for the most part, it's about CapEx transactions. You like my product, you buy my product. You buy more of my product, I'll give you a discount. Okay, great. Well, now I'm tying this maybe to an outcome, right? Or at least part of the transaction I may decide to tie to an outcome or the performance of the product. Is the excavator doing the tonnage that it was, told that it would do, and so on and so forth? Well, the product telemetry allows you to take risk out of that service level agreement, but it also means that you have to start innovating on the OpEx side of the house. As far as I know, most manufacturing companies don't want to be in the business of being financial institutions, meaning it's not going from CapEx to OpEx, and that's the end of it, right? It's still a CapEx transaction for a very large part, but you may add a 2, 3, 4% of the relationship tied to an outcome. And that's where the SLAs come in. That's where the product telemetry takes some risk out of that equation. So there's a lot of thinking around what goes into price. The encouragement I give customers when they ask me, well, what do you think? Well, I think you should talk to your top 2, 3 customers, the ones that you're very tight with, the ones that you play golf with or soccer with or share weekends with. Talk to them. What would they be willing to pay for that outcome? What is a reasonable price point? Try to figure it out that way. That has proven to be a good one. The value prop. Who's the value for? Right? Who am I targeting here? This is interesting when it comes to the channel, because the channel likes to, if you sell through a channel, your product, they like to have control. And now all of a sudden, you're taking the telemetry from the product and you're circumventing the channel, right? It goes from the OEM, the manufacturer of the product, right? Ship it to the customer connects it to Wi-Fi or something, and the signal comes back to the OEM. What do they decide to share with their channel, with their service partners, with their essentially sales channel? What do you decide to actually share with them? There's potential conflicts here. I see it more as an opportunity, because if you want to scale, you're still going to need your channel, right? So, and scaling with service contracts for sure. Why should customers care? If I get a product, and I can be a B2B customer or I can be a B2C customer, why would I want to give up this information? Well, that's why, the price and the way you think about pricing is important, because if I want to offer you, or I should be offering you an outcome, I need data to offer you that. I can't do that without the data. So the data sharing kind of is inherent. This was more critical, 2, 3 years ago. Oh, couldn't possibly share the data. I think we're getting more accustomed to doing that in our kind of private sphere. We're sharing data to ride a scooter in a city somewhere. Obviously, they know what I'm doing, they know who I am, they know my payments, and so on and so forth. And that's coming into the industry as well. So these are some of the kind of challenges that we have seen over the last year, at least. At AWS, we look at 5 priority areas when it comes to essentially what customers are telling us to focus on. Talked a little bit about engineering and design, production and asset optimization. That's really your plant floor efficiencies. How can I, apply this new technology that continues to be innovated around to drive that? Sustainability is a critical topic for all of us. If it hasn't been before, it's certainly on every board level's table to talk about these days. Supply chain is probably the number one topic. If, when I travel around the world, customers still say, hey, Amazon does a good job at being efficient when it comes to supply chain. How do you do it, and how can you help me? That's typically the first question a CEO or chief operating officer will ask me anywhere. And now I also have, an answer to that with AWS supply chain. But this session is not about supply chain, so I'm going to pause that, put that to the side. But then, of course, we have the smart products and services piece, and that's really what, of course, the session is about, but also how you see that in the context of the different functions across a manufacturing company. You got to look at it in a context, right? This is the context. It's really easy to solve for challenges in each of these buckets in a siloed manner, north to south solution, right? Sub-optimizing for this. When you hear the term like digital thread, a thread is typically woven, in this direction, right, east to west. So I get product telemetry. Who needs that in my company? Who else would benefit within, my company from getting the understanding of how a product is performing, how customers engaging with that product? Well, sales probably does. The aftermarket and service department probably does. The supply chain people probably does, and so on and so forth. You start peeling that onion, everybody wants that information. They will look at it from different angles, but the value is very, very, pertinent to each and every, functional leader in the company. That means you have to look across, not just optimize for your own P&L or your own silo. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, there's no one service from AWS or from our partners that's that solves all your, potential challenges when it comes to smart products and offering new and differentiated services. IoT is a very common area. Yeah, absolutely. We have that. Kinesis for streaming, and Greengrass for edge connectivity and compute, and so on and so forth. There are other things. We work with a team that does Monitron for condition monitoring. That's another service that is very common that we see in the market being deployed in OEM's equipment as it leaves the factory. So not just as a retrofit opportunity, but really building it into the product from the start. So with that, I say thank you, and I'm going to invite Gabriele on stage and take over.
Okay. Thank you, Michel, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm very happy to share with you our journey with the AWS in this year. So a quick introduction about our industry and products. We are a manufacturing company in Italy that produces professional ovens for the food service equipment industry. So basically, our customers are restaurants, supermarket chains, hotels, gas stations, etc. We are a relatively young company that grows a lot during the last years. And we are, even if, as I say, an Italian company, all the operation and research and development happens in Italy. We are spread all over the world. We are 1,000 people in 40 branches all over the world. And there is, I don't want to spend a lot of time here. We have a lot of customers that maybe you can recognize and we work on. If I have to speak about UNOX, I want to focus on the three main processes that create value for our customers. The first is research and development. We have a strong and deep engineering culture that spans for chemistry, physics, mechanical, electrical, and electronic engineering. And we spend more than 5 million per year in innovation and new machineries. In terms of operations, we have we are one of the leading manufacturing companies in Italy that are taken as an example of lean manufacturing. And in the last 15 years, we have been pursuing a strong strategy of vertical integration. And nowadays, we manufacture internally almost 85% of the components that makes a finished good. And one of them is electronics. We design and manufacture electronic boards, the electronic boards of the oven. And this kind of vertical integration enable us to redesign constantly during the last 2 years the electronic boards. And when the chip shortage happened, and we by innovating and starting to redesigning it, we were never stopped our production in the last 2 years. The third one is the customer experience processes. We are a B2B company that usually sells to a dealer that then sells to an end user. And a lot of times we don't really know where the product is put on the field and how it's used. And even in the demand side, we tried to pursue a vertical integration strategy. And so, like I said before, we have a lot of people spread all over the world that performs technical assistance, sales, demonstration, and training, and so on. We are also committed to a more sustainable future. We are investing a lot on renewable energies. We are creating new smart buildings for enabling us to scale our production capacity. We have an Energy Star certification for our products. And we are aimed to become emission zero by 2030. Before digging in how AWS enables us to create better and smarter products, I want to focus a little on what is really a professional ovens. I don't know how many of you likes to cook, and even if you don't like to cook, I think it's time for starting to think about food. We have, unlike your domestic appliance, a professional oven is more powerful because it's an oven that can heat the 1 degree Celsius per second, and it uses the steam and humidity to transfer the heat from the surface of the food inside. And we have also a very powerful fan that creates turbulency between the cooking chambers that facilitate the heat exchange and speed up the cook exchange. So in a product that I will show you later, as a result, we can cook roasted potatoes in about 5 minutes. That is an incredibly fast result. Okay. Internet of Things. We started to think about Internet of Things in 2015. We started with an external supplier. We created a first proof of concept that was basically one on-prem solution with 300 ovens connected. And nowadays we have 30,000 ovens connected on a serverless and scalable and reliable infrastructure with multiple workloads that runs on it. In the meantime, we had to face different challenges. The first one was customer adoption. We started to put an Ethernet board on every product in 2015 and tell the customer, hey, if you want to connect the oven to the internet and give us the telemetry, we will give you for free 4-year or warranty extension. And it didn't go very well. The customers were growing very slowly. And then we started to think about why doesn't happen. The first thing that we thought was that the oven is perceived as a professional device, and the professional device is like, by definition, very reliable, and people were expecting to last 8 to 9 years, so the first 4 years were not so important for the customer. So we started to rethink all of it. We put on a Wi-Fi board on the oven, and we started to think how we can actually add and bring value to the customer with the telemetry data. So we started to look at the data, firstly on the small customer, restaurants, bakeries, and we were quite shocked because we saw that the customer, that we engineered and designed a product that was meant to be used 10 hours a day for 8 to 9 years, and with a lot of cooking programs, depending on the food you can insert into the oven. And actually, the customers were using slightly different. On average, 4 or 5 hours per day, and with a fixed temperature, infinite time. And that was a problem for us because the customer didn't really understood how he can optimize his cooking process. You have to know that every time you take a cooking process from a traditional way of cooking, for example, a pan to an oven, you can start to save energy because the oven is thermically isolated. You have more consistent result over time, and you also save manpower because the cooking process doesn't have to be supervised by an operator. So the more and the better you use it, the more you return on your investment. And we started to think about how we can improve this situation. And we created a mobile application that looked at the behavior of the single customer and proposes with a recommendation system new ways the customer can use the oven. And for example, it suggested overnight cooking with slow temperature if the oven wasn't performing cooking during night, cook with steam vegetable if the customer wasn't doing steam cooking. And the result was very good because in the first month of recommendation, the customer started to use the oven more by 30%. Then we started to look at another kind of customer, the big chain, supermarket, gas station that has tens, hundreds, if not even thousands of ovens in their fleet, and they have different needs. They have stores that performs the same cooking repeated day by day, and they want to focus on how, if their store is following the standard operation procedures, they want to focus on the consumption, and if the oven is cleaned properly, etc. So we created a web application that with a first analytics area where the customer can look at all these this data, show in a heat map the peak hours of operation, drill down by oven, by store, by business unit, until you reach to a specific cooking program and see all the parameters of the cooking. Then another need was the recipe management. These big chains has constantly update their cooking processes because the food supplier changes because they improve the recipe, and they still have to go store by store and update the recipes. And so we created a web application, in the same application, a way to synchronize all the recipes between all the entire fleet of dairy ovens. Lastly, for a specific use case, we started to look at cooking center. Cooking center that produces meals for hospitals, canteens, etc. They have like a manufacturing plant that produces food instead of pieces. And they have, their oven is the central equipment of the process, is the bottleneck that you want to focus to schedule in order to optimize production capacity. So we created a scheduler, a kitchen scheduler that can that use a genetic scheduling algorithm that with the optimization can connect to the oven in real time and schedule the cooking programs on the oven in order to minimize the time wasted and setup and cleaning and reduce shipment delays. All of these challenges were basically followed by another challenges because we had, as I said, an on-premise solution, and we had more oven that were connecting on it day by day, and we had to focus to start a migration to the cloud. And here is where AWS come in. They helped us a lot by training our internal resources and provide us the right guide to create a serverless infrastructure, a very modern infrastructure that with zero downtime can enable us to grow over the years. This is the reference architecture. We naturally use most of the serverless and web services provided by AWS. But connecting to what Michel said before, we also use the data to improve our understanding of our customers. For example, we start, as I said before, we don't really know a lot of times where the oven gets installed, and so we created a machine learning algorithm that is able to classify the user by looking at the cooking profile over the day, so we can infer if it's a canteen, if it's a restaurant, etc., and we can personalize more the recommendation that we give with the mobile application. And then we did also some unsupervised learning algorithms to cluster the customer and start to think how we can do a design that is for the next generation of the oven that is more data-driven. That's why we started to create a new generation of smart products. This is the latest launch that we did this year is Digital LED. SpeedX is the first of this series. For the first time in the industries, we have an oven that is able to combine steam with microwaves. So you can also cook proteins in it, and it is self-washing. And we didn't only focus on a mechanical part, but we also put a lot of digital features thanks to AWS. The reference architecture is more complicated, and we use more services, and I will explain you briefly what they are. First of it, we changed our development stack. We started to develop all the interface with web technologies. So in fact, the application that is running on the oven is a React application, and we can run this kind of app on different devices, from mobile to web to the oven itself. And this enables us to take remote control issues to another level. Unlike our competitors that are usually streaming the screen of the oven to other devices, we could create a cross-platform synchronization mechanism. So we have a middleware on the cloud that is serverless that keeps the status of the oven continuously up to date with all the devices connected. It's like we took inspiration from the gaming industries for that. And we can remotely control the oven with very low bandwidth usage. We also started to personalize more and more the user interface. We leave to the customers the ability to create their own pages. They bring their settings and cooking parameters with them with different profiles. And also, we embedded Chime SDK for the first time in a product like this. So this kind of technology was really easy to implement and enable us to a lot of business implication. For example, we can provide technical assistance on time when the fault or the alarm happens, and we can perform some preliminary diagnostic right on the oven. And we also can leave the customer call us whenever he wants and get suggestions and tips on recipes on how to optimize the cooking process. We also, with the speaker and the microphone array, has been able to create voice assistance, so the oven can listen to the customer, and then the chef can give instruction to the oven and perform the main task that he has to use every day. Okay, these kind of features created also a shift in our customer experience. So first, until now, we were basically moving site by site. We were performing product demonstration, training, technical assistance, always on site by putting people all over the world, store by store. And now we can have an hybrid customer experience processes where we go on site for product demonstration, installation, and maintenance, but we start to deliver some services digitally, remotely, just in time where they are needed. We started to think about also how we can create new revenue streams from that digital features, and we used two different approaches. The first one is for big chains that have more than 5 ovens connected, and we created a customer success plan in which we look at the numbers and constantly give personalized recommendation on how to use the oven, the entire fleet of the oven more, and how to optimize the consumption, and give the kitchen scheduler, the REST APIs for the application. And the other approach was like see the digital feature. We put 5 years warranty, cooking concierge, the technical assistance and the voice control that I mentioned before for a premium. And so in these products, all these new digital capabilities had different benefits. The first is, of course, new revenue streams. We also been able to give faster support with less costs because we didn't need to go site by site, and also by connecting to the customer on a real time where there was a real need, we were able to improve customer retention and create new upsell opportunities and position this kind of product to a premium segment. Another couple of challenges that we had in the operations processes that AWS helped us a lot to achieve. The first one is the migration of SAP on AWS. We came from a very old instance of SAP ACC, and we were able to move it all to AWS in a matter of 7 days without experiencing any downtime. I think we were the first customer in Italy with SAP in the Milan region, and the AWS support really helped us a lot to scale the solution in the Milan region by enabling us the first services that weren't available at the moment. And the second one is Amazon Connect. Maybe you recognized the UNOX logo yesterday at the keynote. We are one of the first customers in Europe in 2019. We started to bring all our contact center to the cloud. And we came from a very old on-premise solution that was lacking the possibility to dig in agent performance. We lacked the possibility to perform outbound calls with local numbers in different countries. And with Amazon Connect, we were able to create a new process for customer experience, also in addition with Salesforce that has a very strong connection with AWS. And it was very easy because at the beginning we had didn't have to put any money on it because it's a pay-as-you-go business pricing model. And the first proof of concept was done, I think, in 7 days. And in 2019, we measured the service level. That is the number of the calls that we take out from the queue within 19 seconds. And it was very low at the beginning, very not satisfying, 77%. And we weren't able to measure in that before. And just in a few years, taking new calls because the company growth a lot, we were able to scale the customer center without any problem and delivering very good results in terms of service level. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, I'm still here. You have our contact details, and that's it. Thank you. Please take the survey.
Please take the survey. Thank you very much, Gabriele, and thanks for sharing your beautiful story.
Thank you very much.